Oral questions by members.
Member for Kamloops Centre.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday British Columbians realized yet again that this Premier certainly does not run his government anywhere close to the way that former Premier Horgan ran government in British Columbia. We have gone from surplus and stable credit ratings under Premier Horgan to record deficits and 4 credit downgrades, all under the watch of this Premier. This, in spite of the fact that there is record revenues coming to government on the backs of British Columbia taxpayers. A simple question to the Premier: how high is an acceptable deficit for this government to tolerate?
Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Reducing our deficit and getting on a path to balance is a singular focus for the Ministry of Finance. The Premier is so appraised of this and guiding us on our work. Every single minister in our government, in their mandate letters, were instructed to work with the Minister of Finance to find reductions. At the same time, we're deeply focused on growing our economy. It's so important that we get back on a road to balance, but I want to point out to the member opposite, there is more than one kind of deficit, Honourable Speaker, and we inherited an incredible deficit in services and in infrastructure, and we've been addressing that for British Columbians and will continue to do so.
Kamloops Centre supplemental.
Mr. Speaker, this Premier inherited a $6 billion surplus. We are 2 days into the fiscal year when the 2 credit rating agencies, S&P and Moody's, downgraded for a 4th time under this Premier's watch BC's credit rating. And in fact, Moody's had this to say on day 2 of the fiscal plan. The deficit they project will no longer be $10.9 billion. It'll be $14.3 billion. That is on day 2. Day 2 of the fiscal year. So, Mr. Speaker, how much longer can British Columbians afford to wait for this government, this Premier, to actually action any cuts and get their fiscal house in order instead of watching the deficit grow out of control?
Minister.
Honourable Speaker, the member opposite can make up numbers all he wants. The reality is this work is underway.
Members.
This work is underway, and it will have results, Honourable Speaker. I also want to point out that S&P highlights that federal immigration policies and heightened trade uncertainty will create challenges for our economic growth. We are at a moment of time of incredible economic uncertainty, and it's having an impact, Honourable Speaker. It's having an impact across all of Canada, across the world. Many places will experience downgrades. That's the reality of global uncertainty, Honourable Speaker. We're not alone in this.
Members,
we're not alone
please.
in this.
Members.
And despite the downgrades yesterday, we remain the leader in Canada with the highest ratings, Honourable Speaker, in Canada.
Member for Kelowna Mission.
Mr. Speaker, this Premier inherited a $6 billion surplus from his predecessor, John Horgan. With yesterday's second credit downgrade, Moody's predicted the deficit would increase from $10.9 billion to $14.3 billion. This Premier has run up a record-breaking deficit that continues to grow seemingly daily and continues to leave our children and grandchildren paying for his economic mismanagement. For those of us who don't understand NDP economics, can the Premier please explain the $20 billion swing in the province's fiscal position?
Minister.
Honourable Speaker, there has been a worldwide economic crisis, and we had a decision to make. whether we continue to support British Columbians while they struggle with affordability, or whether we step back and make cuts across the board. We know what the other side would do. They would balance things on the backs of people. The approach...
Member, come to order. Members.
Wow, that was so funny.
Members.
So funny.
Sorry, Cloverdale. Minister.
We know what the work is ahead of us. We are going to protect core services for British Columbians, things like education. I remember what it was like in the early 2000s when the leader of the opposition was part of the unbelievable cuts that they made, how that cost people. I remember having to take my kids to work with me for weeks on end because of the strikes from what you did in education. We are making different decisions on this side of the House. We are making different decisions on this side of the House, Honourable Speaker. We will continue to protect services for people, core things like healthcare and education and social services, and will grow the economy at the same time.
Members, ask the question and let the minister answer the question also, please. Member for Kelowna Mission Supplemental.
Mr. Speaker, the Finance Minister said yesterday that the government knew credit downgrades were coming, saying, quote, they were a strong likelihood. So let me get this straight. This government publicly presented a misleading budget while privately anticipating axing the carbon tax and getting hit with credit downgrades and increased borrowing costs. Can this Finance Minister please help me understand how this is not a return to the fudget budget of the 90s?
Minister.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. This budget was focused on ensuring that we're protecting core services for people while we begin the important work to get back on that path to balance. That is work that we're doing right now, Honourable Speaker. There's very early indications in our budget and much more work to come in Budget 26 and beyond. The indications in our current budget...
Members, calm down. Members, take it easy. Minister.
In the current budget, we see $1.5 billion in savings that we plan to do through economic efficiencies. I expect those numbers to grow.
Members.
Honourable Speaker, this is deeply important work, but it's also really important that we grow the economy at the same time, and we are. I can point out so many different sectors that we're having success in. Let me start by our life sciences sector, Honourable Speaker. Just yesterday, Chinook Therapies got approval for their breakthrough technology, yet another technology developed right here in British Columbia in conjunction with the work that we're doing in our life sciences plan, Honourable Speaker. Another example.
House Leader of the Third Party.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Just 2 years after being introduced, this government has cancelled the secondary suite incentive program, eliminating potential rental stock across the province. This government blames uncertain financial times for this decision, but it is precisely because of these uncertain financial times that British Columbians need access to more affordable housing options, especially as rent continues to rise across the province. British Columbians deserve immediate action from this government to deal with the housing crisis. Through you, Honourable Speaker, to the Minister of Housing and Municipal Affairs, what is your plan to make up for the affordable rental supply that you assured us this program would deliver?
Minister of Housing.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Honourable Speaker, and I thank the member for the question. The member is very well aware that we have been leading the country in trying to address the housing crisis. In fact, jurisdictions around the country, the federal government, in fact, also is replicating some of the strategies that we put in place. We are leading when it comes to per capita housing starts. That is a positive, because if you address the supply in the market, you address the challenges that people are facing. I would correct the member in that rents are coming down for the first time after a long time across the province. In almost every single community, in fact, British Columbia has seen some of the largest declines in rents from any jurisdiction in Canada. It's because we're making significant investments in new affordable housing. We're making significant reductions in red tape so that local governments are able to make decisions to approve housing quicker, Honourable Speaker. And we're partnering with our private sector to bring on new housing through BC Builds and a whole host of other programs. That work will continue. I look forward to continue to work with the member if they have additional ideas on how we can move in a positive direction. But I'm proud of the direction that we're heading, but we know there's a lot more work to do.
Member supplemental.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. The cancellation of the secondary suite incentive program will hit BC rural communities the hardest, where accessory dwelling units and suites are key in meeting their growing housing needs. My constituents created a rural housing program designed specifically around the secondary suite incentive program, which dozens have already applied to, only for this government to pull the rug from under them, and countless other rural communities across BC. Through you, Honourable Speaker, to the Minister of Housing and Municipal Affairs, how much of the funding left over from the secondary suite incentive program will be used to support housing in BC's rural communities?
Minister.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Every dollar that we have will go back towards supporting other initiatives within housing. The member knows that through our BC Builds program, we're partnering with both rural communities as well as large communities to build affordable rentals so that we can get an increased supply and attract the important workforce that we know we need in every single community. I will add that the federal government has announced that they're rolling out their secondary suite program, modeled exactly off of ours, but the one difference is they're offering double the amount of dollars. And I think it's important in these times to make sure that we're making sure there's efficiency and alignment with our programs. We believe that there's no point in having a program if the federal government's going to create that program. So we're using those dollars to put it into BC Builds so we can increase supply in a different format. We're going to continue that work. Look forward to meeting with the member to discuss further actions in the very near future.
Member for Vancouver-Colchina.
Mr. Speaker, I have publicly stated that the number of confirmed burials at the former residential school in Kamloops is 0. This is the truth. A fact that the Kamloops Band itself also admits, and a fact that the Chief Justice of British Columbia has also confirmed in the case of Regina and Dirk last year. As a lawyer and an arbitrator for over 30 years, I have relied on facts my whole professional life. However, the First Nations Leadership Council, one of the most powerful lobby groups in British Columbia, is now calling for me to be imprisoned on the basis of that factual statement. Imprisoned.
Question, member.
Mr. Speaker, will the Premier defund the First Nations Leadership Council and denounce every group that is advocating to criminalize the true statements of Canadian citizens?
Attorney General.
Mr. Speaker, I have to say I think on behalf of most members in this House that I very much regret that that's a question that member. Just the other day, we screened the movie Sugar Cane, and we got to see a little bit of the history of what residential school survivors have faced in this province, in this country. We got to see the pain, but most of all, what we got to see was their search for the truth, for us, with a very simple request to us: support them, help them, tell their stories and uncover the truth of what happened at residential school. And we all need to do that, Mr. Speaker. This member has been speaking very vocally in a very damaging way to survivors, and I want to speak directly to survivors right now. We believe you. We are there for you. We will support you in understanding what happened and being there to make sure we all understand the truth of what happened at residential school. Mr. Speaker, I was a lawyer for many years on the front lines with survivors and their claims going forward, and I saw how hard it was for them to get their stories believed and heard through the justice system. This member has repeatedly called upon us to deny the course that the Law Society is teaching lawyers. That is an important thing for us to uphold in this House. I know that the members across the way and a lot of us in this House support me in condemning that question and standing by survivors, and I hope we would all stand to do that.
Member has supplemental.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. I can go toe-to-toe with any lawyer. I did work with Aboriginal children for 7 years as a young offender defense attorney, perhaps even spent more time doing that work than any of you. Mr. Speaker, my questions are not about feelings, they are about facts. Does the Premier have a list of facts that British Columbians must not speak lest they be put in jail? Or should I request that list from his good friends at the First Nations Leadership Council?
Attorney General.
Mr. Speaker, I won't repeat what I said, but I will say I would hope that that member would use their power and privilege of sitting in this House to support survivors and help find the truth instead of what's happening right now.
Surrey White Rock.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Fraser Health has been in chaos. 18-hour wait times at Surrey Memorial, pediatrics getting treated in portables. We get a press release saying the former CEO of Fraser Health has mutually left that position. We know that's not true. We also know from sources that Victoria Lee was paid an exorbitant severance package. My question to the Minister of Health is a direct one. What is the number that Victoria Lee was paid in her severance package? Can the Minister give that today?
Minister of Health.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Thank you to the member for the question. My focus as the Health Minister is first and foremost in ensuring that the people of British Columbia get the healthcare services that they need and deserve. I know the member understands that severance will be determined between Dr. Lee and Fraser Health as per labour standards and her contract. Mr. Speaker, that severance will be disclosed, and they all are during normal financial disclosure processes. What I'm looking forward to is working with the new CEO, the board, in strengthening healthcare for people in the Fraser Health region, in continuing to take action, like strengthening healthcare at Surrey Memorial, adding a cardiac cath lab, hiring new doctors, hiring new healthcare workers there, establishing a new medical school in the Fraser Health region, the first in Western Canada in over 50 years, Honourable Speaker, and building a new hospital in Surrey. That's a new emergency room and a new BC campus.
Surrey White Rock supplemental.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I never thought I'd be having to play the Price is Right with the Minister of Health, but here we are today. The fact is that Fraser Health has been in utter chaos. And the Health Minister, again, time and time, has refused to say why Victoria Lee was removed from her position. So my question to the Minister is a direct one. Did Victoria Lee's severance exceed over $1 million, yes or no?
Minister.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I don't know how I could possibly be more clear. Severance is determined between Dr. Lee and Fraser Health, and it will be disclosed as per normal disclosure standards. Those are the facts, Honourable Speaker. But you know, it's just so disappointing to see that the opposition wants to distract us from the excellent work that is taking place in the Fraser Health region. Mr. Speaker, it's no wonder they want to distract us from their own track record. For example, Mr. Speaker,
members, come toward. Minister.
Mr. Speaker, when the Leader of the Opposition was in government, he rejected a new medical school. Shame. Mr. Speaker, they sold the land, which already could have a second hospital built on it, but it isn't because they sold that land. Mr. Speaker, we're planning for the future. We're hiring the healthcare workers that are needed. We're working with the board and the CEO to do this. We're going to continue to do this because we know that people living south of the Fraser deserve healthcare like everybody else in British Columbia does, when they need it, where they need it. Thank you.
Members for Courtenay-Comox.
Mr. Speaker, on Monday, the Minister of Health announced yet another superficial shakeup of the Provincial Health Services Authority. Under this government, healthcare has collapsed. Nurses are overwhelmed, and British Columbians are struggling to get basic health services. In a clear case of hiring the arsonist as the fire chief, Penny Ballin, the same failed consultant who designed this broken system, is now being paid $400,000 to fix it. On top of the $1.4 million she has pocketed over the last 4 years as the special health advisor to the Premier. To the Minister of Health, what confidence should British Columbians have that the person who lit the match is now ready to put out the fire?
Minister of Health.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. We announced on Monday the first of the reviews that will be taking place in the health authorities, and we're focusing on the Provincial Health Services Authority because of the way it touches British Columbians in communities large and small with the services that it delivers. This is about looking at administrative structures and ensuring that every dollar that goes into the PHSA is being maximized. We're getting the best value for money in delivering healthcare services on the front line to British Columbians. That work is being led by Dr. Ballin, who, as I have stated in the House before, has a long track record of service in healthcare, a long track record of working in the private sector, the public sector, and delivering, for example, the vaccination rollout program during the pandemic. Now, the member is citing numbers, but what the member is not adding is that some of that contract was to a limited company that employs other people too. That Dr. Ballin, like other healthcare professionals and executives, are paid salaries that are congruent with across the sector in that role. Mr. Speaker, I'm proud that Dr. Ballin is going to help us lead this review, but what I am most looking forward to is seeing the results of that review. I'll be getting the first report in 6 weeks' time. We'll be taking action to ensure that every dollar is maximized and used on the front line, delivering healthcare for British Columbians.
Member for Abbotsford Mission.
Mr. Speaker, let's do some real math. At a time when the Premier couldn't find money to fulfill his campaign promise of $1,000 of a grocery rebate for British Columbians, he found enough money to pay a failed consultant, Penny Ballin, $1,000 a day. Through you, Mr. Speaker, to the Premier, why are we prioritizing friends and insiders instead of everyday British Columbians?
Minister of Health.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. We are prioritizing strengthening our universal public health care system and ensuring that British Columbians get the health care that they deserve. We're doing that by adding doctors and nurses into our system, by pouring more investments into infrastructure than ever before. Mr. Speaker, work that was not done in previous years. Mr. Speaker, we're going to continue this work. We know there's a lot to do, but let's not forget the people who are actually delivering that health care. What they want to hear from this House, what they need to hear from every side of this House, is that we have their backs, that we are behind them, that we are supporting them. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, that's exactly what we're going to continue to do.
Member for Surrey North.
Thank you, Speaker. Surrey's urban mission puts food on people's table. They are going to shut down because no funding. Will the Premier do right thing and fund Surrey urban mission?
Minister of Housing.
Thank you so much, Honourable Speaker, and I thank the member for the question. We have been providing Surrey Urban Mission since the pandemic $1.9 million to operate their shelter. We have notified them. We are going to continue that funding. It's important for members to note that we provide Surrey Urban Mission $6.3 million to provide supports and services in Surrey. It's important services. We're going to continue to support them, Honourable Speaker, but it's also important that we continue to expand the supports available in Surrey. We've been meeting with local community organizations. We've been meeting with the council to identify other locations where we can continue to expand to support vulnerable people. Surrey Urban Mission is going to continue to get their $1.9 million, and we're going to continue to work with them into the future.
Columbia River Revelstoke.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. What have we learned in the House today? Yesterday, BC was hit with 2 more credit rating downgrades. That's 5 in total under this government. That's the market's verdict on this Premier's reckless fiscal management. While families are $200 away from being able to pay their bills every month, this government is dishing out high, 6-figure severance packages like candy to failed staffers and political insiders. Will the Premier admit his affordability plan has failed and finally put people before payouts?
Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Thanks the member opposite for the question. We continue to focus on affordability for people, Honourable Speaker, in many, many different ways. And that's why you see in this budget us protecting core services. The decision to step back from the rebate was one based on the threat of tariffs, which has come to fruition in the uncertainty we're seeing in the market, on the uncertainty that we're seeing in the economy, and the decisions that people are making right now because of it. This is a time we have to spend carefully. Our affordability measures remain in place, things like ensuring our family benefit, the incredible work that we're doing on childcare, and so importantly, such a big chunk of people's spending every month is their rent. And Mr. Speaker, because of the work that we're doing, those rents are starting to come down 5.7%, Honourable Speaker. This is important work and will continue.
Member for Abbotsford South.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And the Finance Minister talks about uncertainty. Well, let's talk about some certainty. You know what's certain? Is if you have a job with this government and you get fired, you're going to get a big payout. That's certain. Penny Ballum, sadly, tragically, isn't the only person getting a golden handshake from this Premier. His former Chief of Staff, Matt Smith, got $279,000 as a severance package. Amber Hawking walked away with a whopping 6-figure severance package. Jeff Meggs received a $300,000 golden parachute. Victoria Lee, failed Fraser Health CEO, allegedly received over $1 million severance package. But the topper, Mr. Speaker, the topper is Lori Wanamaker got $591,000, and then the Premier rewarded that incompetence by appointing her to a board on BC Hydro. So my question, Mr. Speaker, why is it that only former staff are seeing any big benefits from this government while half of British Columbians are $200 away from not paying their bills?
Government House Leader.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. One thing that we know for certain about the opposition.
You get a reward if you get fired by this government.
Member, you have already had asked a question.
They never miss an opportunity to savage the reputation of hardworking, qualified individuals who have spent a career working in the public service in the province of British Columbia, Honourable Speaker. That is shameful. Laurie Wanamaker, Honourable Speaker. Laurie Wanamaker started a career under social credit, served under the NDP, served under the BC Liberals, rose through the ranks to become a respected deputy minister in governments of every political stripe, Honourable Speaker. Yet an opposition that is devoid of any sense of what's right and responsible wants to savage a reputation. The one thing we can count on the opposition, Honourable Speaker, thing we can count on the opposition, Honourable Speaker, is not to stand up for British Columbians, not to stand up for Canadians, but to stand up for their own interests, to make statements such as what we've seen where let's become a protectorate of the United States. Oh, they don't like it, Honourable Speaker. It's painful, I know. But it's a fact. When they could condemn the Trumps, a bunch of them go and vote no, Honourable Speaker. The reality is this. This side of the House respects the public service that does the work, whether they are in the healthcare system, the transportation system, our law enforcement system. They're the public servants, the deputy ministers, the assistant deputy ministers, the executive directors, Honourable Speaker, because they're doing work on behalf of British Columbians, and it's a shame they don't recognize it.
The bell ends the question period.